All right, that must have been the cue. That there was a
Yes,
voice.
that's right.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining tonight. We are still waiting on a couple people, but we do have quorum, so I think we're just going to get started. So we have the first thing, the call to order. So we're going to call this meeting to order. It's 5:02 p.m. And we'll just do a quick hello and audio check of everyone. So I'll just run down the list and you can say hello. I see everyone's video is already working, which is great. And just a reminder, when you're not speaking, if you can mute yourself, that would be wonderful. So I already know that Samantha Lutz sent her regrets. So I'll start with John Carter, please.
Yeah, here.
Jim?
Hi, Emma. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Seo is not here yet. Tony?
Hello, I'm here. Audio okay?
Yep, perfect. David? Oh, I think you froze for a second there, David, if you want to try testing again.
All right, I think I actually dropped off the call completely, but I'm back now, hopefully for good.
Awesome. Robert?
Good afternoon.
Perfect. Yuji?
Hi there, it's Yuji.
And Andrew?
Hello.
Oh, wonderful. And we also have Emma. Thanks for joining. I assume your audio works.
Hi, everyone.
Perfect. All right, so let's get right into it. So the first item here is approval of minutes from our meeting on February 11th. For anyone who reviewed the minutes, are there any errors or omissions to note? And hearing none, I'll call for, oh, sorry, John.
Just a question. I wasn't at that meeting, but with regard to the observations of the board on the water quality monitoring program, is there, or could there be in the minutes some statement about what happens to the board's observations, like how they get taken forward, used in development of the program? Just the continuity of that with whatever's going to happen next is be useful to have those in the minutes if it was discussed or there's some follow-up that could be put there. Just that, a question.
Yep, that's a good question. Haruka or Emma, do you remember if we discussed that particular item and or if it was in the minutes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So John, you mentioned you weren't there during the meeting, right? So if additional comments, if you're interested in like adding your comments, and then those comments can be made during the item 4, business arising out of minutes part, just because minutes only captures what happened during the meeting. So I recommend you making the comments when under the item number 4, business arising out of minutes. And then we can capture that in today's meeting minutes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, so we will discuss that again in number 4. So I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes, and I need a mover and a seconder for that.
I can move that.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'll second.
That was Robert, I think, who seconded.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so the minutes of February 11th are approved as presented. So I think we still need to vote for that. So all in favor, you can raise your hand, or physically or digitally. Perfect. And none opposed, so the motion carries. All right.
Madam Chair, this is Haruka again. I just wanted to mention that there was some technical difficulties happening right now. So actually meeting is not being live streamed at this moment, but this meeting is being recorded. So I believe what will happen is this recording will be uploaded to YouTube later, but I just wanted to let you know in case you're wondering, there is a technical difficulties and this meeting is not being live streamed as of now.
Okay, thank you. All right, number 3, approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Are there any requests to change the order or to add anything to the agenda? All right, so I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So I need a mover and a seconder.
Yeah, second. Nobody's moved yet. I move it.
Thanks, John.
I'll second. I can second.
Perfect. Thank you. Haruka, did you see the comment there from Shannon?
No, I'm going to check it now. Okay, thank you, Emma.
Okay. All right, so that is moved in second. So all those in favor of approving the agenda, you can raise your hand. Wonderful. All right, so that motion carries. Okay, business arising out of the minutes. Is there any business arising from the minutes? So we'll start with John's comment there. Hi, Shannon. Glad you could join us. Yeah, do you want to say that
Maybe
again?
just capture the intent of what I was saying. That where the board has commented substantively, it was very impressive what was discussed in February. Can we clarify how the board's observations get carried back into the committee, into the whatever the status of the water quality monitoring program is, just so we have a trajectory for a clear trajectory of how our comments contribute to anything. It's just unclear from the minutes, but like I said, I wasn't in the meeting, so there may have been something that shows intent from the city or the committee or whoever's designing the water quality monitoring program.
Okay, great, thanks. Shannon or Emma, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, happy to. I think a lot of the comments that we received are going to come into play should we get approval to actually develop the program. And so there'll be ongoing communication with RWAB should that happen. It's still targeting Environment Committee for early June. So next few weeks, it should be going. We're really excited that it's going to go to Environment Committee for discussion and approval there, and then it'll go to Regional Council. But yeah, Emma and I took everything under advisement from all of the feedback we got from the Regional Watershed Advisory Board verbally and in writing, and that helped us improve our draft, that was at the time draft report, recommendation report going to Council, and we really appreciate that.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? All right, so we'll move on to call for declaration. Oh, sorry. Andrew, go ahead. I was looking at another screen.
Okay, just as a note, as I mentioned to the folks from the city last time around, the original work done on 51 lakes across the HRM for management and urban monitoring that was published back in 2015 was actually the basis of one of the components of my NSERC discovery, which I applied for before I obviously knew about your monitoring program. I'd just like to say that my NSERC discovery was actually approved. And so in that, I will be revisiting a number of the 51 lakes across the HRM that were originally assessed with the Bedford Institute, among others, and the DFO, to explore how development has impacted those freshwater basins since. So basically how development has progressed since they were originally sampled. Some of these samples are more than 2 decades old. And then targeting ones in different categories, in other words, different development categories or threat categories, either acidification, salinity, or climate/other, to then reconstruct the entire lake history as far as we can go, basically, to see how development has changed over time. So yeah, just to say that, you know, the research I had planned to do might overlap with the objectives of the monitoring program, which is actually quite nice for me, as well as hopefully for the monitoring program, because it means I'll have to do less water chemistry.
Just a comment from me, that sounds terrific that you are able to undertake that kind of research, especially relating the water quality changes to development and different categories of development. That sounds like it'll be very, very useful. So that's great.
Yeah, I'm happy that NSERC agrees.
Yuji?
I sort of have a question. Because in the last meeting I raised suggestions in terms of engaging private sector, innovation sector stakeholders, creating some channels for these folks testing new technologies and water quality, for example. And I'm glad that it's captured in the minutes, and it sounds like it will be kind of discussed with the committee. I'm just wondering, what is the process typically look like, and what's the time frame in terms of creating a framework into the public policy? Because I'm not quite familiar with the process and timeline.
I'm not quite sure exactly what you're asking, but just a note that if this is a question beyond what the item we're on questions around the minutes from last meeting, it is, even if you want to raise a new topic to discuss, is that what you would like to do, to add something to the agenda?
Oh, no. What I meant was asking what would typically happen once we, our suggestions gets input into the committee and perhaps the city. What do they do with it next, and how long would those take time to come into effect? Does that make sense?
Okay, so basically the timeline of municipal decision making and
Yeah,
how our
and what,
comments in particular fit into
yeah,
that.
what are the steps when they're making decisions?
I almost wonder if maybe, because I see Shannon, you were on here to give an update. Do you think it would maybe make sense if you could speak to that then? Then it gives you a couple minutes to think about that question a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I might suggest, and I don't know if Haruka has thoughts on this, but because it's kind of like a process-based government question, we could maybe take it offline and have the clerk's office provide a bit of a fulsome written answer to RWAB, because you have different mechanisms. Like, just because you raised something in the minutes as something you're interested in and you want to focus on, that you didn't make a formal recommendation to the Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee, and that is one of the tools that you have to move something forward. So that's probably what we could discuss, like your different tools that you have as an advisory board for moving things forward.
Yeah,
Does that make
sounds
sense?
good. Happy
Okay,
to take it offline as well. Just for self-educational purposes, I want to know more about the process, that's all.
Great, thanks. Are there any other questions arising out of the minutes? Okay, I see no hands. We'll move on now to declaration of conflict of interest. Do any committee members have conflict to declare as a result of an item on today's agenda? All right, seeing none, we have no deferred business to consider. So we'll go now to part 7, correspondence, petitions, and delegations. So there were 2 pieces of correspondence to RRAB since our last meeting. The first one is from Shalom M. Mandeville, which we received on March 2nd. And the title was Info on Lake Archives for the Regional Watersheds Advisory Board. So I have it open here, and it was emailed out to the committee ahead of time as well. Does anyone have, I would rather not read it, but I can, if that would be helpful to have on the recorded record. I don't know, Haruka, what do you think?
Usually, unless there's the need from the committee members, I don't think you don't need to read everything out loud, but it's up to the committee.
All right. The gist of it is that the email contains a link to a OneDrive folder of several reports relating to limnology, and specifically the chemistry, phycology, and zoobenthology. And HRM's lake data from 2006 to 2011 is also there. So it looks like this information is accessible to everyone, at least according to this email. Does anyone have any comments that they would like to make? Andrew.
Yeah, I haven't reached out yet, but I did ask Haruka for the contact information for Mr. Mandeville. Obviously, the information in here would help my own research, but he also in the email, somewhere in there, he asked basically for somebody younger to take ownership of maintenance of his database. I think I can do that. I did query at the time Dell's minions in IT to see what it would take to host it here within our unit, and they're undergoing a web catastrophe right now, so their answer was not particularly helpful. I will put this back on my radar to try and see if I can acquire some online space to host his repository so that he can retire and play golf and not have to worry about lake data.
Wonderful. That seems like a good solution if it can work. Tony?
Yeah, just a comment. I guess I would suggest, to have this referred to HRM staff, and I would urge HRM staff to acquire their own copy of this archive. At the time that I was with HRM up until 2008, I did have a copy of much of it that Mr. Mandeville had provided at that time, but I believe it's been substantially updated since then. So for HRM's purposes, I think it contains 2 important aspects. One is a kind of an archive of water quality data from various sources that Mr. Mandeville has compiled. Part of it is HRM's own data, but there are from other sources as well for a wide variety of lakes across HRM. The other aspect is that it includes lake phosphorus modeling. He has created models in spreadsheets for a large number of different lakes. And the utility of this is that those models can be used to predict the effects on the lakes of development within the watershed, which would presumably release additional phosphorus into the lakes. And so he has put together a large amount of information about the lakes, their present state, the inputs and exports from the lake, and also the degree to which development has taken place within the watersheds of each lake. And then the model can be used in a predictive way to say if a certain amount of additional area of the watershed is developed, then you can try to anticipate and predict how much additional phosphorus would go into the lake and what the resulting impacts would be. And I worked with this a little bit when I was with HRM and was starting to try to get the planning department involved. They obviously have a lot of information about degree of development in each watershed. And so if HRM chooses to, they could actually use this in a predictive way to try to determine, what would be the ultimate impacts on lakes if a certain amount of development does go ahead. Could be very useful, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Is it?
Okay, so it sounds like maybe we have two things that will happen here. Andrew already has the contact information, sounds like, so he may reach out on his own time. And we're also advising, or we're also formally forwarding the correspondence to appropriate staff, which presumably would be Emma. So I guess we could formally say that we will forward that on, but I know that you already have the correspondence as well.
And Emma, I can just comment that the link that Mr. Mandeville provided does work. I've downloaded and acquired my own copy, so it's fairly easy to do.
I'll also just say that Cameron regularly received inputs from Shalom as well, and we have them all archived digitally, but maybe not the most recent editions. So we'll make sure that we do. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments on this particular piece of correspondence? All right. So the second one was received on March 18th from Alex Raish Marsden, and entitled "Support for Lake Bannock Initiative." So Alex is a rower on Lake Bannock, and he would like to see the electrification of boats used, or electric motors, for coaching boats and recreational boats and things like that on the lake, in order to cut down on pollution, cut down on noise, and to overall increase the environmental sustainability of those boat operations. And he draws attention to the fact that Lake Bannock and Dartmouth will be hosting the 2022 Canoe Sprint World Championships. A potential point of pride and leadership for the area could be the demonstration of respect for the lake environment and those that enjoy the lake by use of such electric motors. So, and he says that the organizational leadership of that world event is included in this email to ensure that they're aware of this potential initiative. So any initial comments about this? Yuji.
This is a very interesting suggestion. I think it really creates some opportunity, in collaboration with some local stakeholders. Here at Canada's Ocean Supercluster, we work with, academic stakeholders such as Professor David Barkley and shallow water vehicle, autonomous vehicle, essentially autonomous electric boats development, and as well Glass Ocean Electric in electric motor development. So I think it creates some interesting opportunity exploring on projects with some innovation sector stakeholders.
Jim?
Yeah, I agree with Yuji. It's a kind of an interesting concept. I guess my question is to Shannon, as part of Halifax, whether or not the city's considering some incentives for electrification of, water vehicles. The province has already provided an incentive early in the new government for electric vehicles, but I don't know if anyone's ever thought of providing incentives for electric motors. And we have a lot of lakes in Nova Scotia, and certainly a lot in HRM. So just ask Shannon whether or not that's ever come up as an idea as part of our climate change planning.
I think more so that there are some lakes in other provinces in Canada that have some bylaws and rules around having electric only water vehicles, watercraft, which is pretty interesting. I don't know in Nova Scotia where the power lies for requiring versus encouraging something like that. That may be at the provincial level, but we can certainly look into that. In terms of what we're doing as the city government, we can't provide. We're not enabled to provide rebates and things like that for electric vehicles. That's a federal and provincial ability that cities don't have. But we have developed an electric vehicle strategy that is going to council for approval, where we actually will be putting in a lot of the charging infrastructure and then converting our own fleet and transit systems to electric vehicles by the targets outlined in our climate plan. So that's forthcoming to the Environment Committee of Council this summer as well.
Seems like there's a lot of federal grants coming out for climate change initiatives. I wonder if this is something that the Canoe Club could apply to funding for, to electrify their boats or their fleet of coach boats. I don't have any of those programs off the top of my head, but maybe I could look it up a little bit and we could include that in our correspondence back to Alex.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat offline in terms of federal support for electrifying marine shipping. For example, Glass Ocean Electric works directly with Transport Canada and Canada's Ocean Supercluster here, and there are funding available already in place that mostly come from the innovation sector and also private sector. And yeah, happy to chat that offline before you draft the correspondence to this person.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, so Haruka will be in touch to draft a response back to Alex. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect, thanks. And oh, thank you, Yuji, for dropping that link into the chat there as well. All right, any other comments on Alex's correspondence? John.
Maybe just ask him if he could let us know how many boats are we talking about in Lake Bannock? I mean, is it a big problem, small problem? I mean, the process question, the discussion we've had is really relevant, but then to scale it to the specific problem in Lake Bannock, I don't know, 10 boats or 100 boats, it'd just be worth knowing where that could be a test area for some kind of incentive program for electrification. Just to understand what the thing would be. So we could ask him, how many boats are we talking?
Just a quick comment. It's funny because I just live in the neighborhood. Lake Bannock is right in my backyard there. And I think we're talking about maybe 10, 15 scale, definitely not 100 scale.
David?
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting conversation to carry on into the future. And I think that the key player missing in the conversation right now are the actual users. What is the appetite for something like this? And I think that their input, they being the canoe rowing clubs, would be really important, because I think that what we might find is there could potentially be an aversion to this kind of technology, because a lot of these pace boats are used for safety often, or I don't know. I think that their perspective in the conversation would be really important. So perhaps if this is something that could be brought up in the future with a guest, a representative of a club or an organization that represents them, that might be an interesting guest to have on board. No pun intended.
Absolutely, that's a good point. Alex does say that he is a rower on Lake Bannock, but not necessarily whether he is a specific member of one of those clubs or someone who would undertake the administrative or financial role of maintaining those boats or using them. So yeah, it's a really good point for sure. All right. Seeing no other hands, we will move on to number 8, information items brought forward. There are none. So number 9, report/discussion. So we have an update from staff. Shannon, if you have anything there to add.
I kind of said it earlier. We were just giving an update of the recommendation report that's going to Environment Committee for launching a brand new shiny water quality monitoring program for the municipality. So we're excited that that's scheduled to go on June 6th, whatever that Thursday is. I think that's on track, which is great. Emma, do we have any other substantive updates to provide? We're gearing up for the summer season, so the beach testing program, and also we're going to tender weed harvesting services again this year. We're happy about that. We weren't able to do it in the earlier COVID times last summer, so we had no weed harvesting happen in Bannock and Micmac last year, and I know that posed some issues for users of the lake. So that should be going out shortly and will provide that kind of weed maintenance through July and August.
Okay, any questions or comments? I guess I'll just add that Tony and I met with Shannon and Emma and Haruka a couple weeks ago about upcoming issues that could come to the committee, and just want to flag, if I could, that in the next couple of months there'll be more of a review around the regional plan update, if I can say that. And I think when we chatted, you were projecting the themes report would come out in June, I think, for public consultation.
Yeah, so the regional plan, the overarching regional municipal planning strategy that goes out to 2031 for HRM, is embarking on its regular 5-year review. And these reviews take a fair amount of time. And this is the last 5-year review before there'll be an entirely new multi-decade regional municipal planning strategy. And it's a really great opportunity for engagement and to hear from our communities about what's missing, what needs changing, what's working, what's not working. And so the kickoff of this review is bringing forward a report to council called the Themes and Directions Report. And I think it's targeting, I think it's May 28th, but I'm not totally sure if that's happening, but they're in the final review stages. We've been part of the process in advising, and there are 7 themes. One of them is environment, one of them is climate change. So we're really happy in the energy and environment team here that that's the case, and really happy to support the work they're doing. And a lot of the focus is on watershed issues, coastal risk, climate action, and things like that. And so every time these types of major projects happen, we engage all advisory boards and standing committees as part of the process. And so that'll be coming, probably through June is when they're doing their heavy consultation on that just initial kind of kickoff and the direction and the next steps.
Awesome, thank you. So we'll make sure that people on the committee can get a copy of that when it's available. But in the meantime, you can always read the current regional plan if you would find that enjoyable. You can always control F to the environment parts, or the water parts, of course, and that might give you some initial thoughts over possible comments that you might want to make. Andrew, did you have a comment? Okay, just checking because you're unmuted. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? All right, cool. So the last item on the agenda here is an item brought forward by me, and this was somewhat precipitated or came up during that discussion I mentioned that we had a couple weeks ago with HRM staff around trying to deliberately engage the Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee as our rep, just to make them aware that there are several new members on the board, and thank you, Haruka, and that we have a certain set of expertise that can help provide recommendations and advice on water quality and watershed related issues. So after discussion with Haruka, she and the clerk's office recommended that we prepare a correspondence to the committee, to the standing committee, just outlining our, on behalf of the board, to outline our expertise, and not necessarily involving a presentation or anything like that, just something that can be brought to the standing committee's attention. So we prepared a motion here. So maybe first I'll ask if there's any questions or discussion around that point.
Madam Chair, I recommend someone to move the motion first, and then discussion can happen. And if you want to move this motion, I would ask Vice Chair to chair the meeting so that you may move the motion and have a discussion. Or you can ask somebody else to move the motion on behalf of you.
Okay, I'll read the motion first and then ask for someone to move it. So the motion is that the Regional Watersheds Advisory Board authorize the chair to write a correspondence on behalf of the board to Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee to introduce board's expertise and ability to provide guidance on watershed and water quality related issues. So I'll need a mover for that motion so that we can discuss it.
I'll move that.
Thank you, David. And John will second. Thanks. Okay, so it's on the floor now, I guess. Are there any comments or feedback on this idea?
To me, it just seems like an obvious thing. If they don't already know what our mandate is and our subject area, to be more explicit, I guess. I don't see any downside. Seems like a good idea.
Thanks, John. Tony?
Yeah, I would agree with John. It's a good idea. I think part of the concern that we had was that there have been a number of scheduled meetings where we didn't really have any agenda items. Nothing had been referred to us. And so I think in the long run, the concern might be that if that continues, then council's not going to really appreciate the need for or the utility of such a board. So we just wanted to make sure that they're aware of us and what we could potentially do for them. And in my experience with HRM, there were a number of issues relating to development and various environmental things that did get referred to the watershed and lake advisory boards that we had at that time. So we just want to make sure that hopefully they continue referring issues and items to us, either from the standing committee or from HRM staff directly. And I guess in terms of our expertise, I don't know, I assume HRM has copies of all of our resumes. We must have submitted them at the time that we applied to be on this board. I don't know if there's any utility in sending all of that to the standing committee. They probably wouldn't read it all, but just wondering how best to advise them and make them aware of the expertise that does exist here.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm wondering if maybe the most efficient thing would be if I email the board and everyone send back 3 lines outlining their however you want to put it, your expertise, your skill set areas. Yeah, I agree. I doubt that they would go through several resumes necessarily, but if people could send that information to me and I can collect it and condense it into a paragraph or 2, maybe that would be the most efficient way to do it, rather than you saying it now during the meeting and me trying to capture it all in notes. What do you think? John?
Yeah, that's the easiest way to get information about us to them. I guess the real question, and it comes back to what Tony was saying, is how the city, how staff and the committee see our utility. I think I've only been, well, I've been involved with the committee, sorry, the board for almost 2 years. And I've always had a little bit of a sense that we're on the sidelines, sort of finding out about things a little bit as they're happening or even afterwards. So if we could clearly have more teeth, provide more input, especially this thing, the water quality monitoring, and it's just from what people have been saying, there's obviously a lot of expertise in this board with regard to designing water quality monitoring programs, that we can influence the design of the program. I mean, in the end, that's good advice from an advisory board. It comes back to Yuji, I think, his comment about the process. So they may know who we are, our expertise, but the real question is, how can they best use us? I think that's written in our mandate, but do they know? That's it.
Councillor Lovelace.
Thank you. I was just going to watch on YouTube, but there were some technical difficulties. So thank you so much to staff for helping me get into the meeting. And I just wanted to pipe in. I am a member of the Environmental Sustainability Standing Committee. So I just want to say how important it is, the work that you do. And the training wheels are off. Yes, I've only been in this position for 6 months, but I've got a long list of things that I need you to do. So we are aware of your expertise. Obviously, we've seen your resumes. We've appointed you as counselors to this position. Council has said, yes, we need all these really smart people in this room. So just wanted to say thank you, and patience. We're almost there. We're just kind of getting into the flow. We've only really had a couple of meetings, but I do recall a recent meeting where we looked at the ACOM report, and we've got a couple of other things that I know, from a water quality perspective, kind of the intersection with Halifax Water and what Halifax Water does and the construction work that's taking place. And I really see an important role for this committee. And as someone who like 10 years ago was involved with this committee, I'm really, really happy to see that all of you very smart people are here, and grateful for the work that you do. And I'm also hearing a lot from rural areas that they feel forgotten, that their watersheds have not been part of the discussion when it comes to the regional watershed. And, and part of that is administratively how the regional watershed has, sort of been formed over the years. So, just patience. We're getting there. We do have a long list of things for you guys to do. And look forward to working with you. So really, that's all I wanted to say. But we're very grateful for the work that you guys do, and the energy and expertise that you bring to the table. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you for those comments. It's nice to hear, I think. So maybe I'll ask then, from your perspective, is it useful for us to submit this introduction? Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. I think it's great to keep the communication going to again, it's a new standing committee, as from members, right? New members of this advisory committee. So yeah, it's a nice introduction.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I think the next steps for that then, I will send out an email to the board early next week, asking for your expertise and skill set in the water quality and watershed area. And again, not just relating to designing water quality monitoring. I know that's what we've talked about a lot lately, but definitely think outside of that scope as well, considering future issues that will come up. If it would be helpful, I can, with that list or with that email, I can send out a bit of a point form list of things that we've discussed as a committee in the last couple of years, just to give you an idea of where you might fit in, especially for newer members. Okay, and then we'll go from there. And then once I get that information back from everyone, then Tony and I will draft some correspondence and send it around for review. Okay, so Haruka, do I need to close that motion out or anything to move on?
Yes,
Okay.
the voting has to happen.
Okay. All right, so I'll ask for all those in favor of submitting this correspondence to the ESSC. All right, I think that's everyone. Great. So that motion carries. Thank you. So now we'll move on to added items. There are none. And the date of next meeting. So Haruka just wanted me to draw attention to this because in the last email it said the next meeting is March 11th, but the next meeting is June 10th. So you will be receiving a Zoom link to that meeting as well. And I just need a mover to adjourn. David, thank you. And that's it. So thanks everyone. I guess we're done early, which is never a bad thing on a beautiful day. So I hope you can enjoy your evening, and I'll be in touch soon. And see you all on June 10th.